end of the day, my biggest concern isn't the classified documents, to be honest with you.
Representative James Comer is about to admit that his hypocrisy regarding classified documents is totally fine because at the end of the day, it's all politics and he'll do anything to protect his daddy, Donald Trump.
My concern is how there's such a discrepancy in how former President Trump was treated by raiding Mar-a-Lago, by getting the security cameras, by taking pictures of documents on the floor, by going through Melania's closet. Versus Joe Biden, they're like, okay, your personal lawyers who don't have security clearance, they can go through, they can just keep looking and determine whatever's there. That's not equal treatment.
It's not equal treatment because the two individuals in question handled the classified documents differently, Representative Comer, and he knows that. But what's incredible, Emma, is how he is admitting that he doesn't actually care about the classified documents at all. All he really cares about is the politics and the framing and the intentional conflation that we're seeing from Republican lawmakers in making it seem as though Donald Trump and Joe Biden are exactly the same. Now, mind you, Donald Trump was asked repeatedly by the National Archives to please just give us our documents back, please, we're just asking you for months and months and months, and he just would not do it. At one point, Trump's lawyers told the federal government, you guys have all the documents. He is not in possession of any more classified documents. And then they did a raid because guess what? He still had classified documents. Now, you look at Biden, the situation is a little different because while it is definitely not a good look that Biden also had classified documents at his office in DC, and now documents were found at two of his residences in Delaware. Not a good look, but for all I can tell, and based on the reporting, Biden and his team seem to be cooperating and self-reporting on this matter fairly regularly.
Yeah, as our producer here, Matt Lex, said when we watched that clip earlier on the show, yeah, forget about the principles. I just care about the hypocrisy, right? That's the tenor of that statement there. I mean, I honestly feel like this whole classified documents thing, from a political perspective, it doesn't move one person. Like everybody who already hated Trump goes, oh, yet another example of him being a crook and not abiding by the law. And that's the truth, actually. That is the reality for Trump. He was hoarding classified documents and then concealing them from the National Archives and from authorities for God knows what reason. I mean, you can speculate, but he's been prone to blackmail and using leverage in the past. That's my guess. Wanting to hold on to material because it could make him some money at some point potentially, and then refusing to return them, as you say, Anna, and having to, after repeated attempts to get them back, authorities having to go to Mar-a-Lago and take them back, as opposed to Biden happening upon them or his team happening upon them, having to disclose it and doing so proactively because, well, I think they were worried politically about what would happen if it was found out that they covered it up. And that really is the difference there between Republicans and Democrats, is that, Biden at the very least is trying to appear principled. And I think he is. I mean, in that instance, he doesn't want to hold on to classified documents for any nefarious purpose. It was sloppy. During the Obama presidency, he had some hanging around, and they've returned it, and they're trying to kind of brunt the critique or the blowback by being more upfront about it.
Right, and I mean, of course, for those who actually want to be honest about it and suss out the differences between Trump and Biden, these details matter. But regardless of what Biden and his team end up doing, Republicans are gonna Republican, right? They're going to pretend like the two instances are completely the same and there are no differences between the two. What I'm curious about is, what is the process? Like, who is in charge? As soon as the administration is over, they're moving out of DC, which body of individuals, which government agency, which assistants, I don't even know who, like, who determines which documents go where? Because clearly there is some sloppiness here. I don't think that Biden was trying to hold on to classified documents the way that Trump clearly was. But this doesn't look good. I don't want anyone to think I'm just giving Biden a pass. He had classified documents at his office in DC, and now we find out that there are more classified documents that have been discovered in 2 of his residences in Delaware. I also want to give you a few more details through this next clip. Let's watch that, and then I'll tell you what Republicans are up to in response.
On November 2nd, 2022, Biden's attorneys find documents at the Penn Biden Center, immediately notify archives. November 9th, 2022, DOJ launches its assessment. Then December 20th, 2022, President Biden's attorneys find documents at his Wilmington residence inside the garage, and they notify the DOJ. Then just last week, January 11th of this year, Biden's attorneys find one potentially classified document, again, one single document in the Wilmington residence. And then January 12th, DOJ takes possession of those 5 additional documents found at the Wilmington residence. And that was a new revelation over this weekend.
Like, what's going on? Look, I think that there are likely too many documents classified that don't need to be classified. That might be part of the problem. But if we're gonna make a big deal about classified documents, what is the process in determining what can and can't go with, a vice president and a president after they leave office? Who determines that? Who looks at the documents? Who is culpable here? That's what I want to know. And I hate how everything immediately gets politicized. I hate how Republicans are again conflating this issue. And look, I already know what's going to happen. This is my prediction, Emma. There will be no consequences for anyone, including Donald Trump. I think that's how this is going to end.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I should say it with the Cenk intonation. Of course, right? Of course not, right? Like the Trump story was just another example of him feeling like he was above the law. I don't think that's the case with this story. Here's an idea, guys. Just use a digital copy of documents. I know you're all a million years old and everything needs to be printed out for you, but for these are just classified, right? There's also a difference because apparently some of the documents that Trump was holding on to were in another level of classification, I should say.
Yep.
But just for these kinds of documents, just use an iPad. How about that? That might be a little bit easier, huh?
Yeah. I mean, maybe. I don't even know what the solution is. All I know is clearly whatever process is in place to protect these documents and make sure that they are exactly where they need to be is flawed. And look, for Republicans who are like, well, the first batch of documents were discovered on November 2nd. How come we didn't find out until after the midterms? I don't know. I mean, we can speculate. And if their speculation is that somehow the Democrats succeeded in keeping it out of the headlines until after the midterms, I don't think that's a far-fetched speculation. So right. What? You already know the answer. What are you gonna do?
The idea, the thing about the classified documents is that the controversy is not that Trump had classified documents. The controversy is that he withheld them from authorities. Yes. So I don't really care about this Biden thing because he returned them. There might be slight controversy that he withheld it for like a more politically advantageous time. I don't know. But it does seem like now that they discovered those other documents, they're doing a larger search, and that's why this stuff is coming up. I mean, from my angle, it's not really a story. The story was always that Trump was hoarding them and refusing to return them, which is not the case here.
And lying to the feds about whether he was still in possession of classified documents. That was the issue.
Yes.